Today we're going to be looking at the Clic, an ultra compact from Silver Cross. Silver Cross is generally a problematic brand in our experience, having built their reputation through a long history of producing high-end classic carriages, but nowadays generally using that reputation to hawk low-quality contemporary models hidden beneath a glitzy veneer of fashion-oriented textiles and hood ornament detailing. That being said, it's important to give each model that we look at a fair rundown, and, as a result of several requests over the past year, it's now the Clic's turn. And today then, we'll be judging the model in terms of comfort, ease of use, performance and mechanics, as well as which environments it's best suited for. And starting out with some stats, the Clic clocks in at just under 6 kilos and folds down to 54 by 46.5 by 25 centimeters, which is just slightly over the IATA guidelines for cabin luggage in terms of width, though by a margin narrow enough that it may still be acceptable to a lot of airlines if you check with them ahead of time. Moving on to child comfort, the Clic is one of those models with somewhat unfortunate seat dimensions, with the width and backboard length, plus space under the canopy, in generous proportions, contributing to a total length of over a meter, but with a baseboard depth of barely 20 centimeters, effectively limiting the model's comfortable age span to below 2 years. In addition to this, the upright angle of the seat is not quite upright enough, a characteristic for which there are already several customer criticisms. And, though the model does offer a full recline and an adjustable leg rest, a real positive, not always provided with ultra compacts, I would strongly recommend not using the Clic for newborns, based on the overall fragility of the chassis, which we'll discuss in more detail later. When it comes to the textiles, Silver Cross, as usual, has put quite a lot of effort into the detailing, though textile durability is pretty standard for the model's price class. And lastly, while the canopy is decently proportioned in comparison to other ultra compacts, the fact that it sits high, in combination with a shallow baseboard, means that the model provides somewhat subpar sun coverage for younger toddlers who don't sit high enough up on the seat back. As far as parent comfort is concerned, the Clic fails a bit both in terms of handle height, which at 104 centimeters is a smidge too small for taller people to use comfortably, and also in terms of its shopping basket, which, though relatively standard sized for ultra compacts, is somewhat difficult to access. The key problem in terms of ease of use, however, comes with the folding of the Clic, which not only involves a two-step process for unfolding, both the safety latch and the handle-located release mechanisms, but also, right out of the box, often fails to lock upright on one or both sides on the first go. Folding down is a little easier, though it's important to note that the canopy must be extended or it will get in the way of the handle. Once you have the model folded down, the Clic is both compact and light enough for carrying and easy storage, and also includes a shoulder strap. As far as driving goes, the model feels quite weak in construction, and there have been several reports of elements breaking, in particular the handle. And, after testing it, it is quite clear that the Clic fails to handle structurally anything even close to its advertised weight limit of 22 kilos, not that you could fit a child that large in the seat comfortably anyway, as just the traction during steering and the pressure on the handle from tipping are apt to do a lot of damage to the model's connection points. On top of this, despite having average-sized wheels for a model of this size, a combination of the front wheels sitting loose in their housings and rear suspension that's a little too tight for the model's forward-positioned seat make the Clic really unsuitable for anything other than the smoothest pavement and indoor environments. Alright, moving on to look at the mechanics of the model, I'd like to return to that folding system that's difficult to click in place, and say that, engineering-wise, the handle and folding elements are really the Clic's chief Achilles heel, with the key weak point being the hinged locking mechanisms just below the handle, which are both built in quite small and weak proportions, and are thus susceptible to outright breaking, and also which house fragile internal components responsible for the crossover from the upper portion of the folding system to the lower section. And, since locking the model upright is already fiddly right out of the box, my experience with stroller repair suggests that the Clic has either loose or unsecured internal elements, or is simply built so structurally weak that stress on the arms inhibits the locking mechanisms from functioning, both of which are problems likely to grow worse with wear, and which make the model feel a bit weak and unsafe to use. Beyond this, the rest of the chassis does have decent horizontal support overall, but that positioning of the seat a bit too far forwards, in comparison to the handle and rear frame, also contributes to an unstable feeling when using the stroller, causing the model to bend and strain at several points when driving. Shifting down to the rear frame, I've already noted that the suspension is a bit too tight to provide good shock absorption, but I'd also like to cover a couple of other elements, starting with the rear wheels, which are tightly fitted within their forks and not removable, other than by unscrewing the axles, and which are decently sized with pretty standard tires for an ultra compact. And secondly, there's the brakes, a spring-loaded system contained within the rear crossbar, which is better than the brakes found on some of Silver Cross's other small-sized models, such as the Jet, but which is still very prone to failing as a result of rust or grit collecting inside the mechanisms, in particular at the point of the wheel forks, and which is not easy to disassemble if one runs into problems and needs to clean and lubricate the system. Looking lastly at the front frame, though the size of the front wheels is pretty standard for ultra compacts, there's no suspension on the front end, which is not a huge tragedy given that you'll be confined to driving in very flat environments anyway. The model has decent swivel locks that are easy to activate, but the wheel forks are not removable, which makes lubrication somewhat problematic, as well as fixing any mechanical problems that might occur. Lastly, though normally non-removable wheels make for a tighter connection in the front end, the Clic's forks sit pretty loose within their housings, meaning that the model will have a tendency to develop wobble problems down the road. In fact, there have already been reports of this, and since the forks can't be easily removed, such problems will be difficult to fix with solutions such as lubricating with a thick grease or using wave washers to tighten the gap. So, should you buy the Silver Cross Clic then? In my opinion, no, not at all. Though Silver Cross has again managed to produce quite a flashy looking model, the overall fragility of the chassis, in particular that weak point at the handle, a fiddly fold, a less than perfect seat, and poor driving capabilities, make this definitely one to skip in my opinion, as the model is simply outperformed by a majority of competing strollers within its price class. In any case, we hope you found this video interesting, and if you did, we ask that you subscribe, as it helps us to continue making videos in the future. In addition, if you are currently shopping for a stroller, we have a buyer's guide on our Patreon page which lists a wide range of models that we recommend, with a lot of technical and lifestyle related information. You can find it by following the link in the description. Thank you.